In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Mace Windu for the Black Series 6-inch line. This is the very first release of Mace Windu in the red and black packaging. So this could arguably be the best Black Series action figure that Hasbro's ever made. At least between like 2019, 20, 21, in that range that is. Even to this day, with a lot of the action figures we've had released since then, I think you could have a strong case for making this a top 5 or top 10 best Black Series action figure ever made. It's probably one of the best likenesses I've ever seen on a Black Series action figure. It looks spot on to Samuel L. Jackson. I don't really think you could improve the facial sculpt in any way. The articulation is probably some of the best I've ever seen on a Black Series action figure. It's very fluid joints, and he also has the butterfly joints in the shoulders, and we'll show that off here in a little bit. And also, Hasbro, oftentimes are not very consistent with the Jedi, and they severely lack on essential accessories, mainly being a Jedi robe, which they graciously included here. And it's a good one. It's not like a cheap one that they just whipped up at the very end of the production line and just threw it on him. It's a very good material. It flows pretty good. There's definitely room for improvement, but it's definitely up there as one of the best Jedi robes that Hasbro's made for Black Series. And also up to this point, a lot of the Jedi that Hasbro was making, they made very thin lightsaber blades. And I think Mace Windu here is one of the very first ones that actually corrected that and made for a thicker blade for him. So that's very nice. So lots of improvements with this action figure. Hasbro definitely stepped up their game with Jedi. Of course, since then, they haven't been the most consistent. There has been a few blunders here and there. I think Plo Koon and Kit Fisto, for instance, came out after Mace Windu here, and we know those were kind of a setback in every way, basically. But still, Hasbro knocked Mace Windu out of the park. I don't really think there's a need to update him in any way. Of course, he could use a re-release. I'm sure a lot of people would be happy about that. As I mentioned, this is the very first release of him in the black and red packaging. And he also received a re-release in the Phantom Menace packaging that was a couple years after this, I think. Of course, they had an update of Qui-Gon. I think it had Jar Jar as well, maybe a battle droid, and Mace Windu was one of those as well. And I don't think they changed anything with that action figure. I'm trying to think. I think those are the only two releases that Mace has had. He hasn't had an archive release up to this point, which I think a lot of people would be welcoming of. It has been 5 years now since the release of this guy, so I'm sure there's a lot of new collectors that have come in since then, or maybe they missed out on him at the time, so I'm sure they would welcome a re-release of him. So I actually did not get this guy when he initially came out. I think he was originally released in around February of 2019, if I recall correctly, and I don't think I got him until early 20, so I sat on him for quite a while. But I eventually got around to getting him on eBay, and I think I only paid like $21. This was still during the time when Black Series action figures were only $19.99 each, so not too bad of a price I paid for him. At first I was like, maybe I'll get Mace Windu, maybe I won't, and then after a while I was like, well, it's only 20 bucks and a little bit more, so not too bad. I'll go ahead and get him, and then after getting him in hand, I'm genuinely impressed with him. Like I said, I think he's one of the best Black Series action figures Hasbro has made. Let's just go ahead and take a closer look at this guy. So as I mentioned, I think that's one of the best head sculpts that Hasbro's ever done. It's very spot on to Samuel L. Jackson there. Thankfully, he has a little bit of an easier head sculpt, I would say, since there's no hair or anything like that you would have to factor in. And this was still pretty early on in the face printing tech, and Hasbro knocked it out of the park. It doesn't look too glossy, the eyes look right, it's perfect. A very fluid joint in that neck too. It's not ratchety, it doesn't feel stiff, like you have to really work with it to get them to articulate. It's just a very fluid head joint there. And I think it's kind of on a double joint there. You have like the barbell basically. for the rest of his outfit, I think the proportions are pretty good with this as well. In fact, we'll just go ahead and take this robe off right now. So I think the proportions look right. I know Sam Jackson in the film, Mace Windu, kind of have a little bit of a bigger pecs there, I suppose, or that's just how it appears to be on film. Hasbro captured that accurately here. Paint's pretty accurate. I think it looks spot on to how Mace looks in the film. His lighter colored Jedi robes. Nice detail in his belt as well. Unfortunately, one drawback is he doesn't have a spot on his belt where you can plug in a hilt, and he doesn't have anything on the hilt itself where you can plug it in. To allow for that extra articulation for his skirt here, they did do a cut on the sides, which I think is the preferred thing to do for Jedi, for all scales basically. Allows for that extra range of motion. It's not restricted in any way. Sleeves look good. Kind of gives the illusion too. It's not just the sleeve itself, but like he has the undershirt there exposed a little bit, which is a nice detail. Hasbro doesn't really do that very often. They just do the sleeve itself, and sometimes it's completely solid all the way around the hand. Same thing with his tunic here. Kind of gives you the impression that there's an undershirt there, instead of just simply being a solid piece. And I'll just bring out an example right here. Everyone's favorite Jedi, especially Mace Windu's favorite Jedi. So you can see there, it doesn't really give the impression like it's there's an undershirt so much. It's just a solid piece. Here it looks like everything's sculpted separate. And his boots there, which are pretty straightforward. So let's go over his articulation. So like I mentioned, he has a double joint at the head there, at the base of the neck, and actually at his head itself. There's a joint, pretty good range of motion. Look down, decent amount. I can look up a little bit. And of course he has the side-to-side motion. Can rotate all around. Very fluid. Now here's something really interesting that it doesn't seem like it's caught on to a lot of the Black Series action figures, unfortunately. He has the butterfly joints. This was during a time where Hasbro was... It seemed like it was going to become a standard thing for all the Black Series figures, but in recent years, I haven't really been seeing it very much. And that's unfortunate because it was definitely a great thing. Very good shoulder joints there. And because of how soft the plastic for his tunic is, it allows for that extra posability and flex there. Now he does have hinge at the elbows as well, which go maybe just past 90 degrees. Not too bad. His hinged wrists. There's hinge tips. Swivel cut at the thigh. Then double hinge at the knees. He has the pins. Probably one of the last action figures to really feature that. And rocker pulls. And he stands pretty good on his own. I haven't really had any problems. I do keep him on a stand. This clear one here, just so there's not a domino effect. He stands up pretty good as it is. Then for his Jedi robe here, like I said, this is a nice thing for Hasbro to include. Oftentimes they neglect that with their Jedi action figures. There's too many that they've done that for. But fortunately, they did it for Mace. And of all the characters, Mace is definitely one that I think is kind of essential, because he pretty much wears his Jedi robe at all times. But we know that hasn't necessarily stopped Hasbro in the past. I mean, Anakin, Obi-Wan, for example, oftentimes they don't have a robe. Plo Koon was included with one. Kit Fisto, I think, did not have one. Of course, Ayla Secura didn't have one. I'm sure there's other ones out there that I'm drawing a blank on right now. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, they include a robe, which is very strange. They really should have. Still, this is a pretty nice attempt on Hasbro's part. It's a nice thick material. Looks really good on him. And it's easy enough to get on, I suppose. Let's see how he looks again. Most of the time I have him displayed with the robe on. I have seen some customs on eBay every now and then. This one is sufficed. As you can see, the proportions look pretty good on him. The hood is decent. It's not perfect. And you can have it draped back if you want. It seems to be okay. Then for his last accessory is his lightsaber here, which is his signature hilt. Unfortunately, the blade's a little bent for me. And as I mentioned, I think this is one of the first Jedi action figures where Hasbro made a thicker blade for them. Let's compare side by side with Anakin's real quick. And yeah, that is a noticeable difference, I would say. Just keep it more sturdy, less likely to break. And you can take the hilt off here. And it has that nice gold color at the end of the hilt. Like I said, it's kind of pointless because you can't plug this into his belt anyway, so you just have him hold the hilt. Let's see here. And it's a nice purple blade there. Kind of a deeper purple. Sometimes Hasbro goes too light on the blades and then it doesn't look right. Not so much in the case for this one. So I think this Mace Windu is supposed to be based off his appearance more in the Phantom Menace. We'll do some comparisons here with Attack of the Clones figures. Here's his favorite Jedi on the planet, Attack of the Clones Anakin, who will get a review here soon. Then Attack of the Clones Obi-Wan here. I don't have Kit Fisto or Plo Koon. They're just not that good, quite frankly. I hope Hasbro does do a redo of them at some point, but I don't know if they ever will. Not too often they do that with Black Series, especially for more side characters like that. But yeah, overall, Mace Windu is an excellent action figure. So would I recommend him for your collection? I totally would. Like I said, I think he's one of the best Black Series action figures Hasbro's ever made. If you're particular about which ones you have in your collection and you only want the best of the best, this is definitely one of the best of the best that Hasbro's made, even to this date. Like I said, if you made a top 10 list of best Black Series action figures, I think he's going to be in that list. Looks exactly like Samuel L. Jackson. Has some very innovative features about him, and he has pretty much all the essential accessories that you could ask for. Would be nice for him to get an archive release for those that missed out on him. I think a lot of people would appreciate that. Who knows, at some point. There is a new Mace Windu coming out soon, and it's the one with the Attack Battalion clone trooper with the purple color scheme. That set seemed to sell through pretty quick. It's a little bit different from this Mace. He's more Clone Wars accurate. He has the clone armor on his forearms there, and I don't think he has a robe for that one. But that one you could probably get by without a robe, because oftentimes when we see Mace in that Clone Wars context, he doesn't have a robe on anyway, so that might make sense. But still, if you're looking for Mace for your collection, I think this one's still fairly affordable. Maybe not the most, but it's definitely within reach, I think. The Phantom Menace one in the Phantom Menace packaging. I think that one's a little bit more expensive, and that's because you're paying for the novelty of the Phantom Menace package. And then, of course, if you want something newer, or you want to pay retail price, and you're probably going to get that 2-pack, which is like $45 for the 2 action figures, which kind of expensive, but still you get a clone trooper with it, and a clone trooper in a paint scheme that a lot of people really like. So overall, it's a solid action figure all around, and he is highly recommended. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. There will always be more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I always appreciate all your support. And check out the links in the description if you haven't done so already. As always, thanks for watching.